Actually, it's often hard to separate research, teaching, and service from one another. When I think about what I spend most of my time doing, it's hard to classify it as one of those three, as just research or just teaching or just service. I feel that most times you're actually doing at least two, if not all three of those. The research that I do is working in Costa Rica on degraded pasture lands that have been abandoned. And so our goal is to restore those patches, at least small patches of land, to productive forest. And the idea is to bring that knowledge to the local farmers that can implement what we've found. And so that service component is really what drives my research. And so I feel that those two are really intimately connected. And in terms of teaching and research, I feel that the teaching experience that I've had has really made me a much stronger researcher. And that's because when you're standing in front of a classroom of 30 or 60 students that may or may not have a strong scientific background, your challenge is really to break down a scientific concept that they might consider a little bit dry. And so you have to really get creative and think about how you're gonna present those ideas or those concepts or theories to your students in a way that's exciting to them.
Any information I might need from my notes can now be up on the screen, and I simply get rid of the podium altogether. It's just me and the images. I use a gyroscopically controlled remote mouse so that I can create the images, get the images to move forward, and also to have an arrow to point to relevant parts of the slide. I only do that in a classroom when the screen is so large that I can't reach the top. Otherwise, a hand is much better than any sort of pointer. But in a large room, I do use that. And the result then is that I'm able to stand directly in front of the images and get the students to be directly involved with the images behind me. You know, one crucial aspect of works of art, paintings and sculptures, is one's own physical relation to that particular object. And another real advantage of using Keynote, of using digital images, is that I can choose to scale images to being precisely the size that they would actually be were I to encounter them myself. I can then put the image up on the screen, maybe a large detail above that, and then go up and interact directly with that image in the place of my students. My students can't walk up and interact with the work of art, but by identifying with my physical engagement with the work, they can get some sense of what it might be like to walk up to a work of art and engage that work of art. So in the end, my goal is to use the digital images and my own body as a means of making the connection between the students and the works of art as direct and unmediated as possible. I give a certain amount of thought about ways in which to make it possible for my colleagues to make the transition effectively from analog or slide projection of images to digital images. I negotiate with the Visual Resource Collection, the VRC, in order to develop strategies for making image databases readily available for colleagues. If they have to, I find that if colleagues need to scan images themselves, they oftentimes won't do it, though I tend to prefer to do it that way myself for the sake of being able to control quality. Also, I've been in dialogue with the folks who plan the smart classrooms in order to make sure that the classrooms are configured in a way that works effectively for art history as well as for other types of instruction. My goal really, though, is not to force any faculty members to make a leap that they're not yet ready to do. So I model my own work, make it possible for faculty to view the images. I provide some sort of advice or advice along the way to those who want it. But I also make it possible for faculty, especially those who are nearing retirement, to continue to use slides if that's what they prefer. I figure that each faculty member is most effective when they are most comfortable with the media. So if I can provide a variety of options with faculty, and then also structure the options in such a way that as time goes on, it becomes easier and easier for faculty to use digital technology, I figure it won't be much more than half a decade before everyone has made the switch. After all, there's so much more you can do with digital images than you can do with analog images that I think eventually all my colleagues will recognize the advantages.